Hello, this is my second video on how absurd it is to claim that Hitler was a Christian. I think the case from the last video about how Hitler denied the salvational value of Jesus dying on the cross, the deity of Jesus, the Jewishness of Jesus, and a bunch of, many other things that were claimed. I mean, Hitler's not a Christian. He was not a Christian. He's dead now, but he was not a Christian. An objective, open-minded person can see that, but we're not all open-minded or objective. I plan for that, and I plan to continue my case. Please don't comment or argue until you hear the complete evidence. It's overwhelming. Hitler was not a Christian. English historian Lawrence Rees claimed that there's no evidence that Hitler in his personal life ever expressed belief in the basic tenets of the Christian church. Richard Overy, in his book The Dictators, Hitler's Germany, Stalin's Russia, wrote, Hitler believed that all religions are now decadent. In Europe, it was the collapse of Christianity that we're now experiencing. The reason for the crisis was science. In fact, science, I think he deified. That's not part of this quote, but I may get into that eventually later at some point. Richard J. Evans, the author of The Third Reich War, writes, Hitler believed that in the long run, National Socialism and religion would not be able to coexist, and stressed repeatedly that Nazism was a secular ideology, founded on modern science. Science, he declared, would easily destroy the last remaining vestiges of superstition. Yes, Hitler claimed Christianity was superstition. Germany could not tolerate the intervention of foreign influences such as the Pope and priest. He said, were black bugs, abortions on black cassocks. According to Hitler. Richard Evans also writes, as Hitler consolidated his power, schools became a major battleground in the Nazi campaign against the churches. In 1937, the Nazis banned any member of the Hitler Youth from simultaneously belonging to a religious youth movement. Religious education was not permitted in the Hitler Youth, and by 1939, clergymen teachers had been removed from virtually all state schools. Hitler sometimes allowed pressure to be placed on German parents to remove children from religion classes to be given ideology instruction in its place, while in elite Nazi schools, Christian prayers were replaced with Teutonic rituals and sun worship. Yes, you heard that right. Christian prayers were replaced with sun worship. And you still think Hitler may have been a Christian? Give me a break, please. By 1939, all Catholic denominational schools had been disbanded or converted to public facilities. Out of the people that knew Hitler, one person that knew Hitler better than most was Joseph Goebbels. In the Goebbels Diaries, 1939 to 1941, Goebbels was a Nazi officer, a high Nazi officer. In the Goebbels Diaries, 1939 to 1941, edited by Fred Taylor, Goebbels writes on his April 8, 1941 entry, Hitler hates Christianity because it has crippled all that is noble in humanity. Wow, okay, now some people will say, well, Hitler hated the Catholic Church, or Hitler hated the Protestant Church, or he hated the institution, religious institution, but he wasn't anti-Christian. Friends, this quote doesn't say Hitler hates the institutional church because it's crippled all that's noble in humanity. It doesn't say Hitler hates the Catholic Church because it's crippled all that's noble in humanity. It doesn't say he hates the Protestant Church because it's crippled all that's noble in humanity. Goebbels says that Hitler hates Christianity because it has crippled all that's noble in humanity. Goebbels, in his December 29, 1939 diary entry, wrote, the Fuhrer is deeply religious, though completely anti-Christian. He views Christianity as a symptom of decay. Rightly so, it's a branch of the Jewish race. As we know, that's a pretty low insult from Hitler. A branch of the Jewish race? Yes, that's low for him. Goebbels writes in his diary, April of 1941, though Hitler is a fierce opponent of the Vatican and Christianity, he says Christianity in general here, not the institution, but Christianity in general, Vatican and Christianity, he forbids me to leave the church for tactical reasons. What he's saying is, yeah, Hitler doesn't, he's an opponent of Christianity, and I'm an opponent of Christianity, and I want to leave, but he forbids me to leave for appearance purposes, for political purposes. We have to keep up our appearances. We don't want people to know our true beliefs. We want people to stay behind us and fight this war we're in. I hope it's becoming crystal clear to you that there's no way to claim Hitler was a Christian. And I'm just going to continue to go on. Goebbels writes in a 1941 entry that Hitler hates Christianity because it's made humans abject and weak, and also because the faith exalted the dignity of human life while disregarding the rights and well-being of animals. Yes, I'm going to repeat that. That's worth repeating. Hitler hates Christianity, not the Catholic Church or the institution of the church. He hates Christianity because it's made humans object and weak, and also because the faith exalted the dignity of human life while disregarding the rights and well-beings of animals. Alan Bullock, the author of Hitler, A Study of Tyranny, writes, in Hitler's eyes, Christianity was a religion fit only for slaves. He detested its ethics in particular. For political considerations, he restrained his anti-clericalism, seeing clearly the dangers of strengthening the church through persecution. Once the war was over, he promised himself he would root out and destroy the influence of the Christian churches. He didn't like Christianity, but he refrained from an all-out attack because he didn't want another war at home while he's fighting all these other people. Richard Overy, the author of The Dictators, Hitler's Germany, Stalin's Russia, wrote, Hitler was politically prudent enough not to trumpet his scientific views publicly, not least because he wanted to maintain the distinction between his own movement and the godlessness of the Soviet communism. He wanted to keep it separate. He hated Russia. What Hitler could not accept was that Christianity could offer anything other than false ideas to sustain its claim to moral certitude. Richard Overy also writes in his book, from the mid-1930s, the regime and party were dominated much more by the prominent anti-Christians in their ranks, Himmler, Bormann, Heydrich, but they were restrained by Hitler, despite his anti-religious sentiments, from any radical program of de-Christianization. Hitler expected the end of the disease of Christianity to come about by itself once its falsehoods were evident. I'm going to keep going because I know there's some closed-minded people out there. I'm not trying to be insultful, but I know how people are. Some people, they close their ears. They don't like to hear the truth. But if your ears are open, you're hearing evidence. People that have actually researched this subject, not just internet sites that just put quotes that they like. These are the respected people that have looked at both sides, and these are their quotes. Overy also states, Hitler was not a practicing Christian. Well, he used the pronoun he, but he was referring to Hitler. Hitler was not a practicing Christian, but he had somewhat succeeded in masking his own religious skepticism for millions of German voters. He was pretending. He was saying what the people wanted to hear. That's where if you get the quotes that you atheist sites want you to think, oh yeah, well, he was open to God. Well, first of all, he was pretending to the crowd, and second, his view of God was far different from anything Christian. It was a different God completely. But this is exactly what he was doing. He was not a practicing Christian, but he had somehow succeeded in masking his own religion skepticism for millions of German voters. Though Hitler has often been betrayed as a neo-pagan, or the centerpiece of a political religion in which he played the Godhead, His views had much more in common with the revolutionary iconoclasm of the Bolshevik enemy. His few private remarks on Christianity betray a profound contempt and indifference. Hitler believed that all religions were decadent. In Europe, it was the collapse of Christianity that we're now experiencing. The reason for the crisis was science. Hitler, like Stalin, took a very modern view of the incompatibility of religious and scientific explanation. Elliot Barkolo Whedon, the author of The Nazi Revolution 1933 to 1935, Prelude to Calamity, with a background survey of the Weimar era, writes, "The Nazis sought to eradicate Christianity in Germany, root and branch." William Shirer, the author of Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, A History of the Nazi Germany, writes, "Under the leadership of Rosenberg, Bormann, and Himmler, backed by Hitler, the Nazi regime intended to destroy Christianity in Germany if it could and substitute the old paganism of the early tribal German gods and the new paganism of the Nazi extremists." I'll read that again. I kind of stumbled. Under the leadership of Rosenberg, Bormann, and Himmler, backed by Hitler, the Nazi regime intended to destroy Christianity in Germany if it could and substitute the old paganism of the early tribal German gods and the new paganism of the Nazi extremists. Okay, so take out Christianity and instead put a mixture of the new paganism of the Nazis extremists mixed in with the old German gods. That's what William Shirer is saying. I disagree with that statement, but I'm including a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different viewpoints. Whatever this time, including people that don't exactly say what I say, but the point's still clear. He was not a Christian. That is what these people come to the same conclusion, people who objectively study the issue. Michael Fair, the author of The Response of the German Catholic Church to National Socialism, writes, "By the latter part of the decade of the 30s, church officials were well aware that the ultimate aim of Hitler and other Nazis was the total elimination of Catholicism and of the Christian religion. Since the overwhelming majority of Germans were either Catholic or Protestant, this goal had to be a long-term rather than a short-term Nazi objective." Richard J. Evans, in the book The Third Reich at War, wrote that Hitler believed in that in the long run, National Socialism and religion cannot coexist, and stressed repeatedly that Nazism was a secular ideology founded on modern science. Science, he declared, would destroy the last remaining vestiges of human superstition. Alec Bullock writes, Hitler, A Study in Tyranny. Hitler had been brought up a Catholic and was impressed by the organization and power of the church, but to its teaching he showed only the sharpest hostility. He detested Christianity's ethics in particular. So many people will claim, oh, well, Hitler was raised Catholic. He was a Catholic at birth. His parents were Catholic, so he must be Catholic. He was a Christian. That makes no sense at all. C.S. Lewis was an atheist, and later in life he became a Christian. Same with many other people. They change. It can be argued whether Hitler was even a true Catholic or not. When he was a boy, when he was a boy, there's debates on what age he turned from his faith, but we're not talking about his childhood faith anyway. And it's silly to use that argument because people as they age change, as C.S. Lewis did. I wasn't saved. I wasn't a Christian until I was 14. So when I was 12, if you'd used my religious beliefs when I was age 12, that wouldn't fit who I am now. So it's silly to say, oh, he was raised that way, so that's what he must have been when he was the Nazi person in charge, the Nazi dictator. No, that's not how it works. That's a silly argument. Albert Speer, author of Inside the Third Reich memoirs, claimed Hitler once said, "Once I've settled my other problem," Hitler occasionally declared, "I'll have my reckoning with the church." I'll have it reeling on the ropes. Friends, I am bringing a ton of evidence. I don't know if you counted the number of sources I've already included. I have more, don't worry. Hitler was far from a Christian. He was an enemy of Christianity. I'll eventually get to what he was, in my opinion, although I can't be sure. I can tell you what he wasn't. He wasn't a Christian. He obviously wasn't a Jew. Well, I say he obviously was a Jew, and in fact, he actually killed more Christians than he did Jews, if you count in battle. He obviously wasn't a Muslim. You can say he wasn't, but it's harder to say what he was. So that's a little, I'm not saying to be the source, but I'm bringing you people that have written books, people that have quotes, that have written articles that are well researched, not just silly sites that just thumb up the quotes they want and ignore the quotes they don't. These are educated people like Overy and Evans, Weikart. I know I mispronounced his name, but anyway, the scholars with the credentials I'm bringing to the table to this argument, those who counter my point, they can't even come close to that. Anyway, I'm going to continue. I hope you're enjoying this. Now, let's be honest, it's probably not an enjoyment. It's probably pretty boring. But I hope it's educational. It's educational if you're listening. I know it's not easy to follow me, and I'm wasting time now. I'm sorry. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.